everybody, it's Hallie Hara. Today's topic is Through the Magnifying Glass, Making the Most of Externship Observation. So we are going to start where we often start on externship topics and talk about being very deliberate about your observation opportunities. So I think that starts with recognizing that an externship in general is a learning experience. And so, as with any experience you have in your life, there will be things that you can plan for and things that are unplanned. So, if you watched my video about the difference between a part-time job and an externship, one of the things that we talked a lot about is this focus on learning. So unplanned learning is similar to what you'd experience maybe if you just happen to have a part-time job and you incidentally happen to observe something and learn about it during the course of your day. What makes externships unique is that there is a lot of planned learning, a lot of planned observation. And so I want you to spend some time at the outset of this experience really thinking about the opportunities that you want to observe, the things you really want to learn from. And this goes back to your goal setting. What are your goals for your externship and how can you translate those, your SMART goals, into achieving those goals through observation, at least in substantial part. So think about planned and unplanned opportunities include both. Think about traditional and untraditional. So just because you work for the state Supreme Court doesn't necessarily mean that all of your observation will be oral argument. There may be internal meetings within chambers. There may be interactions with, the local bar. So there are things that you really should think about beyond the sort of traditional experiences. And ask others. You may not know that the justices go and have lunch with the Bar Association on these days or participate in Inns of Court on certain nights a month or whatever it is. So ask others at your externship sites about what type of opportunities there may be for observation. And that is not necessarily limited to just attorneys. So ask non-attorneys, ask former externs, what was cool experience for them. And so just find out all the information you can so that you can be very deliberate about the time you spend observing at your site. So just some things that came off the top of my head that you might consider observing are team meetings or chambers meetings. Of course, that includes strategy sessions, client meetings, that could be intake or, a later meeting with a client, conference calls, conferences with the court and without, client and witness interviews, deposition, witness prep is another thing that comes to mind, court proceedings, committee meetings, and other professional activities. So really the sky's the limit. That's just a list to get you started, but it's really worth your time to spend some time brainstorming what you want to see and learn from during the course of your externship. Okay, so once you've sort of done a brain dump and you've asked people, what considerations specifically should you give to your observation opportunities? So I have just some general questions here to prompt you. Who, what, where, why, how, when, and are there any ethical issues? So each of these questions, bears investigating, again, to make sure that you get the most out of the experience. So let's just say for the sake of argument that you're going to see oral argument or a trial. Think about who's a good person that I may want to see, right? And you might even ask in chambers, I was really interested in seeing a skilled oral advocate. Do you have any, looking at the upcoming arguments, is there anyone that you would recommend my watching, right? What type of proceeding, right? Where is it logistically? During this time of COVID, we have the great advantage in many situations doing things remotely. I think that on balance, has helped students a bit with observation, because meetings that students otherwise wouldn't be able to attend because you're in school or because you're remote, you are able to now Zoom into or call into, now that that's sort of, built into our lives. Why are you observing? So don't just observe for the sake of observation. You certainly can do that. I'm not sure that will ensure that you have the best observation for you based on your learning goals. So think about, why do I want to go see that? What is the benefit of, what am I hoping to learn if I go to this bar association meeting? And then think about how you want to participate. In certain situations, for example, you may observe an attorney that you're working with talking to a client, right? And you may be participating in that. And maybe it's an intake process. So do you want to be an active participant, or are you able to be an active participant? Or is this an occasion where you really think, I think passive observation, where I'm just sort of a fly on the wall, will benefit me the most? So those are things to think about. And then the real practical piece of when and time constraints, right? So if you desire to watch a trial, keep in mind, we don't have the Law and Order abridged version that we're all used to seeing on TV or in a movie. These things could go on for weeks. It may be a day-long trial, maybe a couple hours. It varies. And so, really think about, what are my time constraints and what's the best time if I'm going to drop in on a trial? What do I want to see? Do I want to see voir dire at the beginning? Do I want to see the judge read the jury instructions to the jury? Do I want to be there when the verdict comes in? Or do I want to watch some opening statement, closing argument, cross-examination by a skilled practitioner? So really think about when you're going to take part in that observation, and make sure you have enough time around it to participate meaningfully. And then finally, are there any ethical issues that you need to think about with respect to sitting in a meeting, let's say a client meeting? These are things that you definitely want to talk to your supervisor about, to make sure, if it's open court, you're not going to have any ethical issues there, right? But within an office, those ethical issues may arise. So I just wanted to put it on your radar screen to discuss with your supervisor. Okay, so, like anything, like when you go to school, you sit in classes, you can't rely on the fact that years from now, you're going to remember this. And you may well want to remember it. And so, if you're allowed, I would recommend taking notes. But you're not always allowed, depending on the circumstances. So consider that. And if you're not allowed to take contemporaneous notes, think about, when you leave, kind of doing a brain dump of everything that you saw in a narrative fashion, just to kind of preserve the experience for yourself. So you're planning to learn by considering all of the factors that go into observation. And then while you're learning, you're finding a way to document that experience for yourself. So there are many ways to do this. And I just thought the Gibbs reflective cycle seemed to fit in well here. And this is a art, not a science. And so you can reflect in any number of ways. But what I want to emphasize is that you're planning to learn, you are tuned in and engaged during learning, and then you do the after observation work, which is our reflection piece. So the Gibbs reflective cycle would be something that could walk you right through to have a meaningful reflection of your observation. So, at the top, it starts with describe what happened, right? So that's when you get into the narrative we just discussed. The next is feelings. How did it make you feel? Right? And if you just say, I'm going to sit down and reflect on that, you might not think of all these things. That's why these cycles in experiential learning are very helpful to really prompt you to get the most out of the experience. So how did it make you feel? Did you feel like you trusted the attorney who was engaging in the action you were watching? Did it make you feel like maybe the justice system was unfair? So think about what that triggered for you in terms of your feelings, and then try to evaluate what was good, what was bad, right? In the simplest of terms. And then analyze, right? Instead of I liked this or I didn't like this, conduct an analysis, right? What sense can you make of the situation? Really do a deep dive to try and understand what you saw, and then draw some conclusions. So, what specific and general conclusions can you draw based on all of the reflecting you've done so far? And then the final piece is asking, what will I do with this information next time? So what is what I often call the key takeaway from this observation that I can learn, that's going to help me achieve some of those aspirational goals I set, right? So how am I going to use this observation to really improve myself as a future attorney? So observational learning is critically important. It's another distinguishing factor between a part-time job and an externship. In a part-time job, you may not be afforded opportunities to just sit and observe and take in what you can, but it's very much an important part of an externship. And I will say, in my many years as an externship supervisor, I worked at the court for 15 years. And time again, I would have externs saying, I'm too busy. I can't go see that trial. I can't go watch that sentencing. I'm trying to get this done before I have to go to class. Really do pause in your written work. Generally, externship work is not pressing in terms of deadlines because there's a recognition that you're students first. And so really do give yourself the grace and the freedom to go engage in observational learning, recognizing that you're not going to get this time again. In practice, certainly if you're in private practice, who's going to pay for you to go watch something, right? So this is really a gift, and it's a key to unlocking all of the learning, all of the experience that your externship has to offer. So please make the time to do it. Plan to observe, be deliberate about it, be engaged during the observation, and do that post-observation reflection work. And that will really ensure that you get every bit out of this experience that you can. And as always, you can do it. I'll be rooting for you. And thanks.